Good afternoon, everyone. I decided to open this video a little bit differently from others. I've just put up to the webcam there a coin from the Royal Mint, which I may have explained before. I think I showed that with the Charles Dickens video, but that's a coin from the Royal Mint to commemorate the 60th anniversary of Queen Elizabeth II's accession to the throne, also known as her Diamond Jubilee. And I'd like to take the opportunity to speak a bit about my thoughts on the Jubilee, about the Queen, and about royalty in general, at least royalty in the context of the UK. Um, and it may not all encompass 15 minutes, it may go over that and so on. But I'll just take this moment to take a bit of. Anyway, yeah, as if you don't already know, this is already the end of October, so it's already probably widely known. But this year marks um, 60 years that Queen Elizabeth II has been on the throne. That is from the moment she became Queen onwards. Not 60 years since the coronation, because the coronation was a year later. It takes time to organise such a big event. In fact, the coronation in 1953, by some accounts, was the largest event ever staged in London. They estimate as many as 3 million people attended that on the streets. It was a huge event. And bear in mind, that was at a time of post war austerity. Britain was still a very grey place at that time, so the coronation was a big distraction um, from that. I'd like to address some of the way I view royalty in this country. Now, I've always had an interest in the royal family because I've always had an interest in history. I'm sorry, when I say the royal family, I should say kings and queens. I'm not so interested in who's son of so and so and relationships within the royal family. That doesn't interest me so much. It's more from a historical perspective on what it means to this country. I've always had an interest in kings and queens, uh, going right back to Henry VIII and his six wives. I remember when I was a child, I was one of the children around that could actually name Henry VIII's six wives. Um, Catherine of Aragon, Anne Boleyn, Jane Seymour, Anne of Cleves, Catherine Howard, and Catherine Parr. Um, and I knew a lot about them, and I just had a general interest in history. But it's only really in relatively recent years that I've become more interested in actually what the royal family means to this country. Now, in the UK, we're a democratic country, and in any democratic society, you're going to have two sort of camps, or more in many cases. And there are people in Britain who are pro-monarchy, and people in Britain who are anti-monarchy. Um, my position is, roughly speaking, pro-monarchy, but I'm not a royal sycophant, and I'd like to just weigh up a little bit about how I see the royal family in this country. Um, well, first of all, I should say a bit about what the Queen's role actually is. She's head of state, which means she is the figurehead, so to speak, of the United Kingdom. She's not Queen of England, no such term exists, because since England and Scotland unified as a country, as a kingdom of Great Britain, and later the United Kingdom, um, the monarch who has been monarch of England has also been monarch of Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. So it's a bit complicated, but she's not Queen of England. So for our American friends who keep saying that, she's not Queen of England. She's monarch of the United Kingdom and Commonwealth realm, or sovereign of the United Kingdom and Commonwealth realm. The Commonwealth realm includes other nations such as Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Jamaica, Antigua and St. Lucia, Barbados, countries like that. A lot of countries in the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago, I believe. I'm afraid I can't name them all offhand, but I should be able to, but I can't offhand. Um, in the past, that would have extended to the countries of the British Empire. The Commonwealth realm is those countries which still regard Queen Elizabeth II as head of state. The Commonwealth of Nations is a wider band because that is basically the former British Empire. That includes countries like India, a lot of African countries like Kenya, Egypt, and I'm not sure if Egypt's in it anymore, but anyway, it includes a lot of countries which no longer have the Queen as head of state because they have respective presidents and so on. But nevertheless, the Queen is still the sovereign of 16 independent countries, including the United Kingdom. When she's in Canada, she's known as the Queen of Canada. When she's in Australia, the Queen of Australia, and so on and so on. And again, those countries are democracies, so there's two views on that. But I will say, in every country where she is monarch, the majority opinion is in favour. It generally stands around 70%. That's the case in Canada, Australia, and in the UK. It fluctuates. Sometimes it hit a low during the Princess Diana saga in 1997. It hit a low of about sort of mid 50s, and that was a record low for approval ratings for the Queen. But generally, she enjoys very high approval ratings, somewhere between 70% and 80%, generally much higher than her sitting prime ministers. It's important to recognize several things. Number one, the Queen is not, and I must emphasize this, is not an absolute monarch. She has very little political power, but that doesn't mean her position's irrelevant. She has the power to invite a government to be formed if a party has won a general election. The leader of that party will then go to the Queen for a kissing hand ceremony in order to form the next government. Um, she also has certain ceremonial duties, which are quite important. She's patron of some 600 charities. She still does extensive travelling for someone of her age. She's 86 years old now, which makes her our oldest monarch ever. She's significantly older than Queen Victoria or King George III. She's not our longest reigning monarch. Victoria was on the throne for longer, but she's our second longest reigning monarch. And just in case you're wondering how that works, the reason is because Victoria was a bit younger when she came to the throne. Queen Victoria was 19. Queen Elizabeth II was 26 when she came to the throne. She's 86 now. She's still in very robust health, so I imagine she'll be on the throne for some time still. When she passes away, the line of succession dictates that Prince Charles will be our next monarch. Although right now a lot of people are frankly acting like they want William to be the next monarch, even though he's not. He's the son of Charles, so he's the next monarch. But Charles is actually the oldest prince in line of succession ever. He's 63 now, I believe. So let's say he assumes the throne in 5 or 10 years, he'll be almost 70. So that's certainly a long time to wait. Um, and there's a lot of things I'd like to get through, so I'll just keep talking. First of all, going back to this, this is from the Royal Mint. It's a specially minted coin. It's not in circulation, you can't spend this, but it's worth £5. And it's a little bit of background about Queen's 60-year reign. Here it is. Can you see that? Yep. Now, there's certain traditions in the UK every year concerning the Queen. One of them is the Queen's Christmas speech. On that occasion, she will speak to the nation and she'll address some topical issues. So it could be a year, for example, which has been particularly hard hit economically. So she'll speak a little bit about that. She may speak about issues in the world, about war and peace. She doesn't so much touch on very specific issues, and she's always very, very careful not to be political. That would actually spark off a crisis if the Queen made any sort of political bias. So she'll always say, my government, actually we also have something called a Queen's speech, which is after the state opening of Parliament, she addresses the nation and she lays out the budget, not the budget, sorry, the proposals for the political year, which is basically the government's platform for any given year. What she will say is, my government intends to do this, my government intends to do that. And sometimes it will sound like she's speaking about her personal policies, but it's very important to emphasize the Queen has very little say in that. She's certainly allowed an opinion, but she cannot be politically biased either way, because that would be a constitutional crisis. Um, What happens is every week she meets the sitting Prime Minister, they have a discussion about topical issues, and certainly she would show interest. If, for example, there's a major terrorist attack, the Queen would definitely make some sort of announcement or something like that. But generally, she's non-partisan, and that's very, very important, because if she took a partisan position, that would be a crisis. And that's the same in other monarchies as well. If you look in the situation in Spain or the Netherlands or Denmark or other countries, it's the same situation. She can't take sides, and respective monarchs can't take sides. Um, and of course, this wasn't always the way. Prior to, roughly speaking, the Glorious Revolution in the 1680s, British monarchs did have absolute power. What they done was done, basically. They were basically dictators in robes. And an absolute monarch is, in my opinion, a form of dictatorship. Um, and after the Glorious Revolution of the 1680s, we overthrew that sort of system. And it still wasn't perfect. It still took many decades to gain a proper constitutional monarchy. But by the time of Queen Victoria, that's essentially what it was. In fact, Queen Victoria in her early years did interfere a bit in politics, and that caused something of a scandal. But she was known to be very close to Lord Melbourne, the Prime Minister, and to personally have contempt for initially Robert Peel and later William Gladstone, where in which case she preferred Disraeli. But that didn't matter because it wasn't her decision. Because at that time we were in a constitutional monarchy, so she couldn't uh, weigh in on those sort of political issues. And the early years of Queen Victoria's reign was something called the bedchamber crisis. Now, I'll break this into two videos because I can tell it's going to go over the bandwidth. But basically, I say I'm roughly in support of monarchy. I don't subscribe myself as a royal sycophant. Now this year, I did take part in celebrations. I took part in a street party. There was thousands of street parties all over the UK. I took part in one. Um, that's basically when neighbours get together, just have things to eat, maybe play games, just generally have a bit of a party to celebrate Her Majesty's 60 years on the throne. In the UK, I notice there's two camps. You get either sycophantic royalists, people who are so pro-monarchy that they won't hear anything against the Queen, and they're absolutely sycophantic. But then you get vitriolic Republicans who hate the Queen personally, not just the royal institution, but they hate the Queen personally, and they come out with a lot of claims, a lot of those claims of which are baseless. Um, I like to think I'm in neither camp. I am pro-monarchy, but I don't like to think I'm sycophantic. There have been occasions where I've criticised the Queen. A while back, for example, I can't remember the exact occasion. It may have been William and Kate's wedding, or it may have been a high-profile summit. I'm sorry, my mind isn't quite with me today. But she invited a number of dictators to that summit, and the invites were from her royal household, so she had a say in that. That was a big mistake. When she invited the Emir of Kuwait, um, and sorry, not Kuwait, uh, the the King of Bahrain, I should say, whilst his people were being gunned down in Arab Spring protests, that was a huge mistake. And I believe the royal couple, William and Kate, were wrong to invite Syrian representatives to the royal wedding last year, especially when the situation was ongoing with the Syrian uprising and civilians were being killed en masse. I think that was a big PR disaster, and I do criticise the royal household for doing that. I think it was very misguided, naive. It was just a bad judgment, and it showed some. It was rather tasteless to the victims of those dictators to invite these people to dine in London. Um, so I think that was a big mistake. On the other hand, I believe that for someone her age, the Queen has handled her task meticulously. She's handled it with grace, strength. Um, I honestly believe she is a good leader in the role that she does. She is a good constitutional monarch. You know, sometimes people complain, oh, she's not outspoken enough. She should make a statement on this. She should make a statement on that. The important thing to recognise is by the very nature of constitutional monarchy, she can't do that. She can't make profound statements on political issues, because if she did, I'll go into another video now.